Hello and welcome to the TSM Fanhub Podcast. This is episode number 4. I'm your host Josh, and joining me we've got Brad, Chris, and our very own rock band legend, Jeff. You can ask him about that later.
Damn it.
Cat's out of the bag. I told you I'd put that in. If you said anything about that. I actually didn't tell him. So we are your source for all things TSM, anything about the org, the players, the teams. We're here to give you information about what's happened, what's coming up, and what our thoughts on that are. So tune in every week and find out more about TSM. This week we had technically 4 of our teams. I was going to say sports, but they're games. So whatever you want to call them. We had
the debate's starting already.
Go. No. We had Leffen and Zero at the Shine 2017 event put on by Geico. The sponsorship, I don't know. We had PUBG, which was at the Gamescom over in Germany, and we also had, as you know it, the League of Legends squad playing in semifinals against Dignitas in the Riot-sponsored event of League of Legends. My jokes are just horrible. So, anyways, we're gonna dive right into it. I don't have any other things other than thank you all who have been listening with us for the past 3 weeks. We're at week 4. I bet you didn't think we'd last this long. We didn't think we'd last this long. So 1 month going strong. Wow, it's been long.
Wow.
Yeah, we should probably stop soon. Get my Wednesday nights back. No, we love this. So we're going to keep going. Have no fear. So the first thing we're going to talk about, the Geico Shine 2017. Geico, if you're listening, we'd love to have you come and sponsor the podcast.
Please insure me.
Yeah, we had 2 very different results from our 2 Smash players this weekend. The first and probably the easier one to talk about, Zero, won the Smash 4 tournament, the solo bracket. He just kind of smashed everybody. Yeah, that was. Guys, it was your choice to make me host, so you have to deal with horrible jokes. And yeah, so any quick thoughts about Zero? Just really dominating. This is his second win in 2 weeks tournaments.
Basically, I'm pretty hyped about this because if you just look at the top 8, he went through MK Leo, who took him out a while ago, but he's since come back and beaten. He took out Nero, who I wanted to see him take down. And then he took out Tweak, who is another up-and-coming, huge, very talented player. So this is a stacked top 8 that he won through winners. And that is, such a huge accomplishment. I think those might just be Zero, MK Leo, Nero, and Tweak. Those are kind of the best 4 players in Smash 4 right now, along with a couple other names. But, the fact that he beat literally the 3 other best players, in my opinion, that's really just shows how far he's come and how much he's come back from his slump.
All of my inconsistency rants about him in the beginning of the year, I think he answered this tournament because all the quote-unquote demons that I thought he was going to have throughout the year, the Tweaks, MK Leos, all that stuff, he ran through them pretty clean for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's learning to adapt, which it's nice to see that, and let's see if I would like to see then those guys that just got their butts handed to him this past weekend now adapt, just like Zero did when they handed him his butt a couple weeks before that. So we can watch the scene grow, and that would be even the best part about it. So I mean, it's cool to see it from this end. Smash 4 is obviously growing and all that fun stuff, but it's just cool to see his inconsistencies go out the window and he's actually learning and evolving as a player. So.
Yeah, because he's kind of had an interesting road, being so dominant at the beginning of the scene and then kind of dropping tournaments here or there, getting second.
Last year was scary.
Yeah, and now turning it around, and he's, I mean, obviously he's won 2 in a row, and that could end, his next tournament. But at least it's something to bank on. I think he's got this weekend off. I don't know. There might be a bit of a break here, and that's definitely taking 2 tournament wins, beating these people who have recently knocked you out of tournaments. Is a great way to kind of go into a time of rest and ramping up for your next event. So looking forward, he should be, he's on a hot streak. He should be solid. If he's reviewing, if he's playing, practicing, should see him stay in form as we move forward. That luck did not really pass over to our other TSM Smash player in Super Smash Melee. Leffen got into the round of 8, I think it was. He was in the losers bracket and had a whole bunch of different misfortunes befall him there. He was knocked out pretty early on in the losers bracket, and by Mewtwo King. And so thoughts on that? I know Chris has got Chris's rant coming up, but I don't know if you want to start that now, or if you guys want to have just general discussion about the tournament, and then you want to get into that.
Jeff, do you want to go first or do you want me to explain, the whole fiasco first, let you talk, and then I'll go into mine?
Real quick, I just want to say that while there's no shame in losing to a player like Mewtwo King, I think at this point in Leffen's career, I want to see him beating these players more consistently, and that he should be someone who's at a higher level than he is, I think.
Okay.
There you
go. Okay. I agree with Jeff. I think that Leffen needs to get more consistent with his play in general, okay? And besides this tournament, because I'm kind of ixnaying this tournament after I've explained what happened, because if you guys were watching the bracket, like Josh was, this whole tournament was a big fucking fiasco, which I find really funny. But I think he needs to get a lot more consistent across the board, because Melee is growing faster than a scene like Smash 4. He needs to respond like Zero does for the most part, but I think Melee is progressing faster than his competition in Melee is progressing faster than Zero's competition in Smash 4. So he needs to up his game even quicker because of that. Okay? Alright, that's what I want to say about Leffen about this tournament. Okay, going back to our episode number 2, when I went my first rant about the Melee scene, they need to start taking themselves more professionally. This is what I was talking about. Okay, this past weekend there was a fiasco about across the board on this tournament if they were going to use a mod called UCF. Okay, I will explain what UCF is right now, so if anybody doesn't know what this is what it does. It is called the Universal Controller Fix across the board. Because Melee is such an old game and it's on an older console, the GameCube, controllers are very hard to find in general. Here is, if you are on video, sorry if you're on SoundCloud, I can't have pictures for you, but I'm holding up the GameCube controller, and if you look at the D-stick, even on mine, you can notice that it's not as responsive as where it should be. It's still a little bit laggy to one side, which then, as an input response when you play the game, it will make it lag or sometimes not register, and that's sometimes with the buttons in general. And with hard techniques that you have to do in Melee with shield drops, back dashes, and stuff like that, you need your controller on point. So the mod that was introduced in Shine in the last tournament this past weekend, UCF, sorry, thinking of McGregor versus Mayweather there for a second. UCF, that mod brings all the controllers to an even playing field. So as the designers of the game, they obviously within the code they put in, this is the input that the controller needs to hit for this point for it to respond to this point, blah blah this and blah blah that. So what the mod does, even if your controller, let's say, is redone so it's like super responsive, no matter how responsive it is, no matter how old it is, it will bring everything to an even playing field. Okay, that's what that mod does. This weekend, where the tournament got bigger, like I was preaching 2 weeks ago, this is where the fiasco comes in. the UCF mod wasn't universally put out between all the GameCubes from the start of the tournament to the end of the tournament. There were people saying in the practice fields that some of the GameCubes in there had it and some of them didn't. Leffen goes this into more detail in his video about the response about this whole situation. He talks about him and Duck going into the actual VIP where the top 32 players can practice in their tournament and going in and individually making sure every GameCube had the UCF because they found out that only half of them in their practice fields had them on there, and people in pools were supposedly complaining about it or whatever and whatnot. Okay, so what happened this weekend? During the set, after Leffen loses the plup from winners to go down to losers, he plays Chudat from Team Liquid. In that set, when you watch it through, at the start of Game 5 or the start of Game 4, I don't remember when exactly, Leffen asked for a button check. He calls a timeout in the middle of the set, which is totally unheard of. It threw me off when I was watching it. I was like, what the fuck is going on? He asks for a button check. He makes sure everything is good. And then he continues on the game. He ends up losing the set off a reverse sweep, 3-2. Set is over. Game over, right? Leffen should be out. From his account, when he came out with the video today, he said that he left the stadium. He was mad at himself. You can check his tweets too. He said, "GG Chudat, good luck, and I hope you advance." You know, giving his good lucks and all that fun stuff. Apparently, somebody did a check on the GameCube or something or other and noticed that the mod system wasn't in play during that time of the match. So they had to call Leffen back into the stadium. As being a competitor, he was mad, obviously, and this is where the whole fiasco where, hey, we need standard rules. Hey, we need people that are running these tournaments that knows what's going on, because when they brought up the issue of replaying the set, that's where people got mad, because in the rule book there was no set rules, there's no set guidelines, it was a gray area, and then people are being criticized because they let the players do it, and some people think that the tournament organizers needed to lay down the law and go, either they need to map this out and say, yes, they have to replay this set, or like they do in some sports where the ref gets the final call, if it's a last second shot, if it's a final touchdown, they have final say, and they go, well, if the play is done and over with, the quote unquote set was done and over with, that's how it plays out, it's done and over. That was a whole fiasco on its own. Apparently they'd let the players choose, but Leffen wanted to redo the set, but Chudat felt like he was being forced into it because of the whole fiasco of people not knowing the rules and some people wanting him to redo it because he felt like it's integrity and all of that fun stuff. And this all happened in a matter of like 30 minutes, guys, by the way. 30 minutes, where I was complaining about this 2 weeks ago and I've noticed this type of stuff. Now we're at Shine 2017, one of the biggest tournaments of the year, and this is happening again.
And the crazy part is, Chudat was in the middle of an interview when it was going on. Like, he was in the winner's interview, so he was really blindsided by it too.
Oh yeah, and this is just ridiculous in general. So they had to replay the set. Leffen ends up winning after the mod was placed in. After that, he goes and plays Mewtwo King, loses it to Mewtwo King. He gets 5th, Chudat gets 7th, and this whole fiasco feels like, what the heck was going on? Were these GameCubes, like, what happened in pools where half of the GameCubes had them on? Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. And some people say that sometimes it's so minute, it really doesn't make a difference. But then if you're playing at the top 8 level, that half of a millisecond, that second, is what they train for, or what they do and what they notice. So who really knows? Who does this all fall upon and things like that? And once again, I personally think it's tournament organizers. If you're going to bring this type of mod in, you have to know that, okay, so then what if something goes wrong? Because you're bringing in a different variable from the outside that you have no control over, or something could go wrong. Like, what if the game crashed in the middle of a set because of the mod? You know, what do you do during that then? Do you replay it? Do you not? Blah, blah, this and blah, blah, that. This is where they need a universal rule set, because on big tournaments like this, how do we really know what would have happened in that set? Would have Chudat made the reverse sweep still, or would have Leffen in the first set made a couple of those key shield blocks that he possibly missed and got a couple kills and he would have won?
And I think that also plays out, as you were talking about, in like the open pool. Was this an open tournament?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in the open pools, I mean, of course, you're probably not going to be a nobody that comes up, but if you want to grow the scene, And you know, like if this happened in the open pools, no one's gonna care. They're gonna be like, well, shucks, sorry that thing wasn't enabled, and I guess come back next year.
Right.
Mhm.
But you know, because this was a high profile match, that actually gets fixed. And I can see, if you, like you're saying, there just needs to be standardization throughout every single game that's played in a tournament, so that you don't have players feeling slighted. So you do, the people who are, obviously it's great that you have all of these high level players, but it's the community that makes this game, and it's the people who come to these open tournaments and just try, because that's where everybody started,
Mhm.
and
Yeah,
so if
everyone's a
you're
nobody at some point.
right, if you're screwing over the people who are nobodies just because they're nobodies, that you're not gonna see the scene grow, and you're not gonna give the opportunity for somebody to come up through the ranks and actually become something. And so yeah, I think that's a really worrying trend, and I hope that that's something that gets addressed as time moves on, and that hey, we messed up, we gotta fix this next time.
Yeah, and going to kind of grow off of this to go into my quote unquote rant of the week is that in general, in esports in general, we're at a very, very weird time. I watched this past week Travis Gafford's the economy of the esports, which was very eye opening. And if you didn't get a chance to watch it or read the article that he was talking about from Surrender at 20, if you're a League fan, Surrender at 20 for us was one of the first league sites that I got introduced to myself. And Moobbeat was one of those dudes that like in the community you'd see him like tweet out and you'd be like, oh, what a cool article did he come up with? Or like something cool that would have came out, or you see his patch notes from Surrender at 20, they went through that stuff. That's what you go to. And it's very disconcerting to me as a fan and wanting to watch this esports in general grow, to watch some of these homegrown, these grassroots guys, how do I explain this? Content creators. There is the whoop word I was looking for. So these content creators, they're getting shafted in the most dumb way. And they try to give us as much free content as we can, and us as a audience, we don't help them out doing our part. And I know people are going to be like, oh, how do we help them out? What, you want us to throw money at them? It's not really throwing money at them, but doing the stuff like when they have to do advertisement stuff, when they have to put ads on their site, take the ad block off. One of the craziest things I didn't even realize was that when they brought up the actual numbers about it, was that 80% of his traffic has ad blockers on his site. So let's say he wants to make, an honest living in a year just off that website, keeping it up. So about $50,000 a year, right? He gets 80% of that taken away. He's only making like $2,000 a month, and he's making $12,000 a year. You know what I'm saying? If he gets his full revenue, he can make his whole paycheck of $50,000 and keep running that site for us. It takes us 30 seconds, or even these days, what we were talking about earlier before the podcast, Jeff, is that you can whitelist them. Do the little stuff like that. We're old enough. We can if we want to watch the scene grow, like as kids, we wanted to see video games get big. I remember I wanted to see the same exact stuff. This is kind of our time to kind of put up or shut up, where help out the streamers or whatever. If you can't do the help them out by giving them $5 a month on their stream, or help out with their Patreon, do the ad blocks, whitelist them on the thing, take your 30 seconds, and take your ad blocker off of YouTube right before you watch their channel, just so they get a little bit, so that we can keep these guys that we enjoy, so we don't get it commercialized like kind of what sports is doing now. I found it really funny that I saw also a appreciation thread on League for the Riot casters, and the dude said, I watched the McGregor-Mayweather fight, and I realized how much I enjoy the League casters more and how more genuine they are. And the only reason why they can be like that is because they get funded, or they get support from us, from the fans, and they can pay, or us giving them, watching the Riot streams, making sure that we use the advertisement, or use the codes for their advertisements or whatever and whatnots when we buy that type of stuff, to keep them going, because that's their living. If we want them to do that and entertain us, we as fans, we got to give back every once in a while. It's the same exact type of thing. And it's just like, right now, I feel like as little kids, we wanted to watch esports grow, and we want everything free for us. We grew up in the era where the internet was free for us. That was our wild, wild west. We watched it grow up, and at least for the 20-year-olds, at least for us, right? And now we get to we're in a crossroads where we can make it super commercialized and let all the big businesses come in, or we can start putting up money and letting the business know we already have our culture. You guys can join in if you want, but we don't need you. So that's what we need to start doing. And I think it would be sweet if, we call attention to this type of stuff. The Travis Gaffords, the Thorins, the Monte Cristos, if they're doing the streams, post it up on the league subreddit. Let's go watch them, man. Let's give them 1,000, 2,000 views to give them that support, because even if they're getting that views, that might get them another advertisement deal, or that might get them another sponsorship on their stream, or might make them want to stream more. And personally, I would love to see, all those guys put up more and more content on a daily basis, because if we didn't have the Monte Cristos, we didn't have the Surrender at 20s, we didn't have Thorin, we didn't have Richard Lewis, we wouldn't be here right now. This TSM podcast wouldn't exist. All the rest of these podcasts we listen to wouldn't exist. These channels, the Scars, the Cutie Pies would not exist if we didn't have these commentators. So that's kind of like my rant, is just like, we as a community, let's step up, guys. Let's do this. Let's grow the scene so all those old guys that used to tell us when we were 12 and 13 and go, video games aren't going nowhere, we can kind of give them that little middle finger and go, hey, watch this shit grow, guys. And we can be the part of it.
And not to sound like Jake Paul, but dude, like and subscribe to all those different channels, because that's where the real revenue comes from. If you're not liking the videos, if you're not subscribing, they're not getting the numbers that they are looking for, and they're not getting the money that they deserve.
Yeah. Even as I'm not in college anymore, but when I was a broke college student, I was still giving giving money to these streamers and stuff like that. So it's just, maybe I had to make a sacrifice. Maybe I couldn't go to the grocery store and buy, something or maybe I couldn't make that.
Had to get one less case of ramen.
Yeah. Maybe I could make that fast.
No, that's like a trucker ramen, let's be honest. Stuff is cheap.
It's all, like you said, it's all about supporting content creators, because they're the reason that all of this exists.
Right. Yeah. And I think we're in a really interesting spot where esports is kind of right on the cusp of becoming huge and very, very mainstream, or petering out. And I honestly think a lot of it is going to have to do with Riot's franchising and how well that goes. And I could see a lot of the esports scene, outside of League of Legends, not working if the Riot franchising doesn't work, and if it doesn't pull in revenue, and if sponsors start leaving. But if it does work, I can definitely see a ton of other games following in suit, and lots of franchises popping up throughout a bunch of different titles. And that's what we want to see. And so just supporting in every way that we can is one way to do your part. We get the games, we get the in-game content, but it's the people outside who aren't directly benefiting from you playing the game, content creators. And we're not even saying plug our channel. We don't pay to do this. It's our free time, and you don't have to give us anything. But the people that put out the content, and the people who are really the ones, they'll be the first step into mainstream media, like the Travis Gaffords and people like that, supporting them. Yeah, that's you tell them, Chris.
That's my rant of the week, guys. And I'll be trying to come, with good content like that, but we just gotta realize that, we're growing up, and we gotta, start showing some love back to the people that we enjoy on a daily basis. That's it, guys. Less negativity this week, more positivity.
So kind of in what we've been talking about, kind of getting what you're talking about, Smash, and how tournament organizers kind of get their act together. One thing I was thinking about this weekend was how spoiled we are. I know all four of us are League fans, and for all of you out there who also are mainly League of Legends fans, just how spoiled we are with, we joke about, we always like to joke about the IEMs and how horrible their production quality is, but it's still top tier production quality. So that kind of helps me transition into the next topic, which was a game which had its first official money on the line tournament. So PUBG, for those of you who don't know what PUBG is, go check it out. I've explained it in the past, but PUBG had their first tournament. It was in Germany. It was the Gamescom Invitational. It was about 76-ish players throughout the weekend. Last week we talked about they started on Wednesday. They played Wednesday through Saturday. On Wednesday we talked about Break getting second in the solo run. Just real quickly, if you don't know, TSM has 4 players for PUBG. They've got Vis, Smack, Break, and Aim PR are the 4 players. Check all their streams out if you can. They're awesome guys. It's so much fun to watch them play solos, duos, and squads together.
I've barely played the game at all, and I can watch them, and it's actually a lot of fun.
Yeah, they've got great personalities. They've got just really interesting streams. They're usually pulling in around like 2,000 viewers, so definitely go and hit them up. And so we're gonna just recap this weekend. So we're gonna talk about the Thursday, Friday, and Saturday matches. So that was third-person duos, first-person duos, and then third-person squads. The team. Now I'm gonna put a giant like asterisk like before anything that we say, and this is the first time that anybody at this tournament is playing this many really, really good players all at the same time. And this is the first time that a tournament has been for money. And this is, it's a ton of firsts, so take everything with a grain of salt. And I want to say, just starting it out, the TSM guys played very, very well. For being guys who, they had done a couple practice tournaments, but for being, this is the first real tournament. This is the first time they're meeting each other and, in real life. They showed up and they represented TSM very, very well. No first places, but again, it's almost like who cares? They showed up. They showed that there's definitely potential. Super proud of these guys. So, Chris, do you have all of just the results real quick? If not,
yes,
I can stall for longer.
No, you're good. So for third person solos, first place was Evermore, second place was Break from TSM, and third place was Haze from Team Liquid. Okay, and that was on Thursday, right? Yeah,
Wednesday.
Thursday. Or was that Wednesday? That was Wednesday.
That was Wednesday.
Okay, that was
Yeah.
Wednesday. Thursday was third person duos, which C9 did get second. First place was THZ and Yuki, which were asterisks on everything else. There's a bunch of stream teams, if that makes sense. So top streamers were also involved. So actually Yuki and THZ were just actually a stream team. So they took first, which was kind of surprising, which shows you how young PUBG is in tournament wise. And then third place was a Spanish team. By the way, there were teams from Korea, China, Russia, Germany,
Europe.
All over Europe. So there were, if you look for the top 3 teams, there might be a lot of teams that you're like, huh? Who are those guys? Because it's probably from a different country, by the way. Friday's matches were first-person duos. Cloud9 took first with Chappie and Soldier at FPS. Copenhagen Flames got second, and then Team Never Lucky with Forsen and Andy Pyro. By the way, both those guys are actually really, really good. Andy Pyro took a round in first-person, solo, wasn't it?
Yeah, I believe so.
It was solo the last
so.
round.
Maybe not.
Solo, I think, last round, and he went on a 5-person kill streak at the very end, and it was pretty dope. It was really, really good. So I thoroughly enjoyed watching that. And then squads was Saturday. Luminosity got first. Tier 3 Gaming got second, and Noble got third. And I want to say it went Liquid and then TSM fifth.
Yeah. So this tournament, Break got one chicken dinner on the weekend. Vis and Smack on third-person duos got a chicken dinner on game 3. Overall, again, the TSM guys played really, really well, given all the circumstances. So one thing I wanted to touch on briefly was just this tournament was like I was saying, we get spoiled with Riot. This tournament had a whole bunch of issues, from the video directing to the actual logistics of hooking 76 computers up and having them all work together. I want to shout out to the 2 casters who casted the entire tournament. They did an amazing job. They made it interesting. And you could tell by the end, everybody was really hitting their groove. And at first, the first 2 days made me really scared for the future of PUBG. And I was like, well, this is going to be like the one and only tournament that we ever see. Like, this is horrible. When squads came around, like, there was interesting storylines. There was interesting, like, casters were getting into the games. And it was just a really energetic, exciting environment. And I think don't quote me on this, but I could definitely see tournaments in the future being only 4-man squads, just because of how much more competitive it is. And yeah, so I don't know, what are you guys' thoughts on this weekend, the TSM squad, all of that stuff?
I think they did amazing, first and foremost. It was super fun to watch in general. Even the games that they were, let's say, they got out probably not in the top 10 or whatnot. When you get to that final circle, and just to second that note that you said, good job on the casters, they made every final circle like the life or death situation that you wanted to see in a PUBG match. Like, it was like, even my heart was racing a bunch of the times when I was sitting there just watching them. And it's like how hyped they were. They played off each other very, very well. Even when there were technical difficulties, they played on the strategies of the games, all the different aspects very, very well. They talked about the difference between third person and first person, even their personal preferences. They just, even when the technical difficulties happened, they brought out the good parts of the game. So even if you were watching it, you were like, oh, this game is fun. Oh, okay. And then when you got back into the game, you actually understood more what was going on because of their commentary, which, kudos to them. Good job on that, because that was probably tough, because there's a bunch of random stuff that I was like, what the fuck's going on at this time? Like,
Yeah.
why did we stop right now, or what is going on? And hearing too, because I was listening to Break and Vis's stream today, there are apparently a bunch of like audio issues too. People weren't able to hear each other. If you notice, if you do happen to watch the VODs, a bunch of them got those big old earmuffs, and they weren't even using
Like,
their
you'd wear
headsets.
it like a firing range.
Yeah, and they would use earplugs. So they would put the earplugs in and then put the earmuffs over them, and then they would use the headset that they provided with the mic on their neck as their mic still. And apparently, because they could hear the crowd and people cheering, and it was a shit show. But the developer at the very, very end, I don't know if he put it up on Twitter or if it was on Twitch, but he did apologize for everything, and he did admit that it was pretty bad, and that they were going to move on and try to learn from a lot of it. So, hey, kudos to them for being honest about it. They could have just like kind of like snuck out the back and been like, haha, we took your money for 1 day or 4 days, lived and left. Like, kudos to them.
Taking the money and running.
Exactly.
I watched like the official stream. I wanted to watch the like TSM guys streams, but I was trying to find a way to watch both of them, and I couldn't get them both on my phone at the same time. So I stuck with the official stream, and I really enjoyed it. Like you said, the casters did a great job, and I caught that Andy Pyro like 5 kills to end win the game or whatever. That was nuts.
You're like, whoa.
Yeah, like this was, like I said last week, like I'm more of the YouTube highlight kind of guy. Like, I don't want all the strats. I just want to go in there and watch kills. But like my first time watching this tournament was Friday, I believe, and it was awesome. Like, I didn't go in rooting for TSM. Of course, I wanted them to win, but I was just trying to learn the scene in general, and I think this whole tournament did like a great job of explaining, or of like setting the scene for me. And even though I play PUBG, like, I don't know what's going on professionally, but now I feel more up to date, I guess, especially with all the conversation going on here and all the tournament that I watched. So I enjoyed it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
There is one interesting news that if anybody is more interested in like the more grassroots PUBG online scene, it's kind of funny. PUBG Online, they host tournaments every week, and they're switching starting beginning of September, their new month-long series. All their tournaments are going to be in first-person mode, and they are upping the loot counters. So like certain areas will have more loot, because that was one of the things that a lot of the streamers and people playing in the PUBG were mad about, was that they could Brink was even complaining about it, that there was a time where him and AIM were like 2 games in a row. They looted like 10 houses, and all they ended up with was like an Uzi and a shotgun. And they were like, "This is ridiculous. Like, no, at least 1 AR for one of us. Like nothing." So that's interesting that they're messing with the rule set. So that's kind of fun to watch if you guys want to see something like different. Definitely watch out for that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. It was really exciting. I was pretty much watching the TSM stream. So they streamed the whole time alongside the main stream. So I had the main stream on one screen, just watching the whole map with all of the names on it. And then I had the TSM guys up and like a multi-twitch on the other screen. And it was really fun watching them talk about strategy, develop strategy. This is their main shot caller, and it was really fun to I know last week I was talking about my kind of like fear of AIM PR, not necessarily listening to Vis and kind of doing his own thing, and that is definitely not something that came up in the tournament. And it was just really nice to see the team mesh, and it's going to be really exciting to watch them going forward. So the comms weren't messy. The comms were very clear. They played well. They, and they learned a lot. And it was very apparent that they learned a lot. They learned a lot about what the competitive scene is going to feel like, how they can better prepare for that, different strategies that they have to do in order to do better. Just a ton. Real exciting news, actually, TSM related, PUBG related. There is going to be a PUBG reality series. So just like TSM Legends, just like Hyota, or however, I'm going to say that wrong every time. Sorry, Leffen, if you ever hear me just murder that. So who knows what it's going to be called? TSM. What's it? Battlegrounds? Who knows?
Yeah, that's all I can think of.
Yeah, unless I can't think of anything else. But
no.
TSM breaking the mold.
Breaking point? What?
Oh
shit!
No,
not here.
No.
Please don't.
We just hired Loco Dogo to coach the PUBG team.
Oh my gosh. So be looking out for that. That's gonna be really exciting to watch that series. I don't know. Again, it's probably gonna. Who knows how often that's gonna come out? Just like with Leffen's series, it's probably gonna be a lot more random than the weekly TSM Legends. But watch that, and again, go out and support our boys on Twitch. They all are a lot of fun. They're a lot of fun. So one thing I will say, big shout out to Lena, for apparently she was the one who got that team together, and she was the one that did most of the recruiting. I don't think Reggie had too much of a hand in that. So big shout out to Lena for getting that team together, and I'm really excited to watch that team grow. I don't know when their next tournament's going to be. Right now, like Smack's at some conference doing something. The team's kind of all over the place right now, so they're not doing. There's a tournament this weekend that they're like an online tournament that they're not doing. So keep a lookout on the TSM subreddit for upcoming PUBG matches, and let's get hype about that. It's really exciting to watch. Kind of watch a team grow from out of nothing, especially watching esport grow. So keep tuning into that. And I think with that, we've covered everything for TSM. So I guess, no, I'm kidding. Again, my jokes
definitely nothing super important happened last weekend.
So the last thing, we're going to spend a bit of time on this, and we're actually going to, well, actually I won't. Should I give that away for next week? Yeah, no, we'll spend a bit of time on this. TSM, the League of Legends team, beat Dignitas 3-1 in the semifinals. They're going to be going on to their 10th straight NALCS finals in the organization. That's the longest, obviously, in NALCS history, probably in EULCS history, probably in any of the league's histories.
Yeah.
Just showing such dominance in, domestic dominance, even through roster changes and everything like that. That's, like 10 finals appearances. They are, I believe, are they 4-6 or are they 5-6? Sorry, 5-5 or 4-6. I don't remember exactly what they are. They've won 4.
Yeah, because
They
they won with
won
all Bjergsen.
season 3 spring. They won. Then they lost summer, spring. So they got one there. Then summer of season 4 they won.
Bjergsen
Season 5 spring they won.
Yeah, they're at 5. They're at 5.
Okay.
Yeah. So a couple things coming up. The first, we'll talk about the Dig TSM series. Yeah, we're gonna start by talking about that. It'll flow better that way. So, I guess let's take this game at a time. So in game 1, TSM drafted a pretty familiar comp.
Mm-hmm.
They drafted the Tristana in the bot lane. They had Bjergsen on, what was it? Was that
Cassidy?
That was Cass. Yep.
Cassidy, which we had seen him pull out before. They had Hanser up in the top lane. He was on, oh gosh, I'm forgetting all of this stuff right now.
Shen.
He was on Shen. See, I keep thinking these things, but then I don't want to say it in case I'm wrong. I just gotta be wrong and be happy with that. He was on Shen, and then you had Gragas in the jungle with Svenskeren. And I don't know what your guys' initial reactions. I'll talk a little bit and I'll let you guys take over. My initial reaction is, if you are on a team playing against a Kassadin Tristana and you can't get more than 500 gold ahead by 20 minutes, you're gonna get spanked in a tournament like in the semifinals. Like, Dignitas didn't have a scaling comp. They had an early game comp with Renekton, Jarvan, Talia. Yes, you could argue that it takes a while for Kalista to get off the ground, but they had Blitzcrank, which that is he can make roams and make lanes pop off at the beginning of the game, and during the early game. And they were playing against Kassadin, who is literally trash garbage. And I don't know how to explain. Like, he literally can't do anything pre-6.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he can auto attack the wave and hope that he doesn't get ganked with his flash down. You've got Tristana, who needs to just wait and farm up. Yeah, she can kind of go aggressive in lane, but you've got to be really careful. And then and Dignitas couldn't make a lead, and TSM at 20 minutes were like, all right, thank you for the win. Obviously the game took 35 minutes, but there was really no chance for Dignitas. So what are you guys' thoughts on game 1?
To me, this just seemed like we've seen TSM on this comp before, and this is, to me, standard. This is Doublelift playing these late game scaling carries that he's absolutely ridiculous at. Bjergsen, okay, what was actually the most interesting to me was Bjergsen's use of Zhonya's Hourglass. He was constantly getting in what looked like way too deep, and Zhonya's at the exact right time, and they just couldn't do shit to him. So he would survive these extended fights as Kassadin, where he could put out damage the entire time. The whole time they're trying to get on top of him, and Tristan is just sitting in the back auto-attacking. Mm-hmm. TSM's team play is absolutely ridiculous here, and it's pretty insane.
I hope I'm not stepping on Chris's toes by saying this, but Hanser played out of his mind this whole series.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I know last week we were worried about Hanser coming into someday, and then Hanser just looked him right in the face and said, like, I'm not scared of you, like, watch me. And then he just took over the entire series, in my opinion. Yeah. The bot lane also surprised me. I thought Altek and Adrian were going to do a lot better. I mean, Adrian didn't play as typical Adrian champions, and TSM's bot lane just steamrolled them the whole series.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was really surprised to see Thresh such high Thresh priority, when it was almost as if this series happened in a little time capsule where everybody who was inside of this series forgot that Ardent Sensor was an item, and like just didn't care that there was such things as Ardent Sensor supports and stuff like that. Because you had Adrian, who actually, let me see. I don't think an Ardent Sensor got built this entire series. which is obscene when you think about like the CLG series where they were building Ardent Sensor on like Sejuani. Was that this week or was that last week? But where they were like
the Oriana built it, I think, right?
Yeah, like just and over in Europe as well, just like Ardent Sensors were. Oh no, I know what it was. It was in the Gauntlet in LCK. They went Lulu, like not Lulu AP jungle. They went Lulu support jungle so that they could have a Janna Lulu, 2 Ardent Sensors, and then you have this TSM Dig series, and they're like, I don't like their A key must have been broken. Like they probably couldn't type in Ardent Sensor or something like that. Like it just seemed so. Yeah, I'm looking back at all the games. Not a single Ardent Sensor was built in this entire series, which is just so foreign for everything else that was going on in the world.
It might have to do with they wanted these supports with these specific 80 carries, because if you look throughout the series, and not to jump ahead in games, but the next 3 games they played Kog'Maw, Braum every single game. So I think it's not necessarily that they don't think Ardent Sensor is good. I think it's more they want to show that they didn't want to show a whole lot of picks, so they just played stuff that they're known for playing, and then B, I think it's just Kog'Maw Braum's a really strong lane. Thresh Tristana is a very strong lane. And essentially they were just trying to sort of have a really dominant lane, which they were successful in.
Yeah.
I don't think Dignitas wanted to give you don't want to give Biofrost Thresh, especially with a TSM that loves to roam, because if you Biofrost with those lanterns are ridiculous sometimes, and you know TSM is gonna do they're gonna go balls to the wall, so they're gonna do stuff on the Kassadin where he's going to jump in straight to the backline Zonias, knowing that Biofrost on Thresh is going to throw in that lantern to get him out every single time. Would you want to because then it's kind of like pick your poison. Do you want to deal with that, or do you want to deal with the Ardent Sensor, or do you want to deal with him on Rakan with Ardent Sensor? Because they did ban Rakan every single time afterwards.
Right.
And Biofrost is known not to like Janna that much, and the rest of them too. Like, I mean, he'll play Lulu and stuff, but honestly, if you would rather have Biofrost on Thresh or Braum or Lulu, I pick Thresh and Braum with Biofrost any day than over Lulu and Janna, just because he plays very well in protecting his carries, and that's with TSM, that's all they need is just protection. They just need peel, and Janna and them, yeah, they might be able to heal and give shields, but with Braum and Thresh, your peel is through the roof. So I think that's why they prioritize it so much. It's just like, why would you want to give him that? Because he's gonna save his team every single time, and that's what they're just gonna depend on is that Thresh. So that's why I think he probably picked it so much. It was just like.
But you would think that Dignitas would have at least some, like, it's not like Dignitas wasn't trying to play scaling, or all ADCs benefit from an Ardent Sensor support, and we know that Adrian's Janna is, S tier. Like, he is a really good Janna player, and they just had Janna went pick and ban less. Like, she didn't get picked or banned the entire series. What?
Do you think that they were scared because as soon as they see a squishy support, Svenskeren and Doublelift are going to lick at the chops just to wreck that support every single time they have a chance. And that had to come into play because as soon as Doublelift saw Janna, and if they would have given him Thresh, and if they would have gone Thresh into Janna, they would have hooked that Janna every second. They would have called Svenskeren would be down there at 3 minutes, or probably 2.5 minutes, go for like 4 minutes. He would have been down there every second that Janna was in lane. He probably would have jumped her every single time.
Especially when you consider that the strongest form of Janna right now is when she's taking the gold per 10 yellows and blues.
0 defense.
Yeah, exactly. So, dude, she gets hooked once and it's Biofrost, so she's gonna get hooked at least once.
And Sven's going Rek'Sai, Gragas, that's all pick stuff. So they would just jump that thing, and there you go, your Janna's gone. I mean, I feel like that probably would have played into it, because Doublelift, as soon as he sees that Janna, he's going kill lane. We're going this. We're going to town.
Exactly.
I'm taking Ignite. I don't need heal.
Yeah, exactly.
Brad, any thoughts on game one?
I'd like everyone said, it's a typical game or typical TSM comp. Like, I think it was just them feeling out Dignitas, because like they didn't go for anything too crazy, but they still went real hard. So I mean, it was a typical TSM feeling out their opponent, and then once they see what their opponent's going to give and pick bans or what strategies they're going to do in game, then you can react or modify your strategy for the next game.
Yeah. So I think moving on to game two, we saw, I think this entire series, we have to give Parth huge props because I feel like Dig got out. I mean, other than the fact that I have no idea what Dig was thinking in their drafting, obviously that's how you get out drafted, but you know, Parth drafted so well, and I know that's a lot of team decision, but you know, like every game had a very clear win condition from TSM. The only question mark I would give would be the Rek'Sai pick in game 3.
Mm-hmm. No reason to switch from Gragas.
I wish it was a Kane. Yeah. I wish it was Kane.
If it had been, if Rek'Sai was still
right.
tanky, that's a perfect pick. But because Rek'Sai is no longer like the tanky, Rek'Sai is more of like a damage dealer, you know, fighter type of jungler. That pick just doesn't quite make sense. But game 2, Hanser finally banging his head against the wall pays off, and he goes in to give Shrimp some problems.
Dude, he solo carried that early game.
Yeah, he goes in with now I believe did Bjergsen roam over, because he roams down topside river. Did Bjergsen roam over, or was he with Svenskeren? Either way, they burn Shrimp's flash. Shrimp has to use Blast Cone to get away. Hanser's like, okay, walks around the other side of blue buff, comes back in. It's like, you don't have a flash. I do. You're dead. Gets first blood. Sunday's still up in the lane on Maokai, just farming away. And then, yeah, Hanser just really takes over this game and makes it impossible for Shrimp to do a single thing. Mm-hmm. That alongside of Svenskeren played game 2 very, very well. And we kind of saw TSM putting to rest two, I don't want to call it Dig memes, but like the Someday Maokai and the Shrimp Nunu were both laid to rest as, no, these are very beatable. Mm-hmm. What are you guys' thoughts on game 2?
This is kind of like a thought on the whole rest of the series, but the team that took Maokai every game lost. Like, that was a complete reverse from the week before. Like, whenever I saw Shrimp's Nunu, I was like, oh, it's gonna tilt him. That might be it. But then Hanser comes in, gets first blood, gets double buffs, and then, like you said, continues his solo carry. But Dig was putting a lot of emphasis on their bot lane. They had the Maokai, the Nunu to protect, or to buff up or protect Twitch, Thresh to get him out of places. And he didn't really do anything spectacular. Double F ended 9-2. And Biofrost on Braum had 17 assists. So, like, once
17 of 20 assists.
Yeah, you got I didn't even realize the stat line was 20-5.
It was a stomp.
Yeah. Once, you want to get late game for that, but when you're getting stomped like that, you can't get late game because any good team, any professional team is going to close you out way before that. So.
Plus, who's the only champ? The only AD carry that late game out damages Twitch? Kog'Maw.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And Kog'Maw had like a 30 CS lead.
Yeah, at
15, I think.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure Doublelift was done with his first 3 items. Oh, okay. So he bought a QSS at 25 minutes, but I mean at 27 minutes. So if he hadn't bought that QSS, it would have been like 25 minutes. But at 27 minutes, he had Ginsu's Runins and his Blade of the Rune King. Like,
this was the game he had that double kill in top lane, right? With just the Ginsu's versus he stacked it like within like 30 seconds, and Jat was like, "What the hell?" One item cog.
I believe so. Yeah.
And not only that, I think the QSS is really, really smart against the Nunu, because the only thing that you could stop you from doing your damage is the attack speed slow on Z. So you QSS that, and suddenly you're just, you're destroying.
Yeah, but
because
like
your
at
Kog'Maw
27
double
at
stacks.
27 minutes, he's late game or not
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
he's late game Kog'Maw. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
27 minutes, the only items that Someday had were, Righteous Glory, Spirit Visage, which will stop some of Kog'Maw's. He had a Ninja Tabby and then a Warden's Mail. Like he you're not going to be that tanky against a 3-item Kog'Maw as a 2.5 item tree. So
One thing
whatever.
that I thought was surprising, they played a lot of Kog'Maw, but we didn't see what other regions and other teams are doing with Kog'Maw, where the Kog'Maw will take cleanse or something like that, or barrier, and the support takes heal. Maybe it's because we didn't see the Ardent Sensor supports, because I know that that's a part of it. But basically, I just thought it was very interesting that we didn't see Ardent Sensor supports because of specifically the Kog'Maw pick and the current Kog'Maw strategies.
It could also be TSM winning with certain picks. They don't want to give away too many picks to Immortals. Like, I
Yeah.
almost guarantee those two teams have been scrimming nonstop. They're the two best teams in playoffs, and they haven't met until now, so they've probably been scrimming. And Immortals probably already had some of their picks like in their head, and TSM doesn't want to give away any more potential picks.
Yeah.
Moving on into game 3. This one got away from TSM a lot. My initial reaction was, again, the Rek'Sai pick felt odd. Gragas was still up. He wasn't picked. He wasn't banned, and they went for Rek'Sai. There's a lot of weird things. TSM looked like they kind of just like had a misstep. Hanser had some weird ultimates, just some weird team play, which he's shown that he's a very solid Maokai player. Sven Skaren kept going in and dying immediately because Rek'Sai's not a tank anymore. Bjergsen got hooked way too many times. They weren't running cleanse or QSS in that game, and they still took Dig to 37 minutes. They did end up losing. Someday was a beast that game. Adrian was playing out of his mind, getting tons of hooks.
His hooks were insane. He had Bjergsen so many times.
Yeah, he had Bjergsen's number that game. One of the things I would like to say is TSM needed to team fight. They needed to team fight to win that game, and they were never able to take a fight on their own terms.
Yeah.
Every time they were fighting, it was Dignitas engaging. Every time TSM tried to engage, Dignitas was able to just disengage and reset and kind of get the fight they wanted. So TSM never was able to get a fight where Bjergsen and Double Lift were actually, kind of putting all of their damage out at the same time. And it was always, put a couple autos here, but I have to kite back. Oh no, Bjergsen's dead. I guess I have to run now because we can't win this fight. So
the one fight that we did see Double Lift get to just dump all of his damage out on people was the one where they were already behind like 5k. It was in the mid lane, and we saw Braum using his shield to sort of be just that human shield essentially for him. And it's the one where where Dignitas had to back off after most of TSM was already dead, because Double was able to get the 1 kill, and they knew that he was going to be able to take the rest of the team out essentially and basically 2v4. It was a pretty insane amount of damage dumped out in like such a short period of time that I think if they had been able to do that one more time, they would have been able to sort of carry out a win, but they just weren't able.
Yeah, the whole game felt like it was on a knife's edge, and it was, if TSM got a team fight they wanted, that game was going to be over really quickly. But they just props to Dignitas for actually keeping TSM at arm's length.
Yeah, that was a really well played game by them.
Fred?
Shrimp had a really good early game too. He built the Moby boots Elise that you see in solo queue, and he was all over the place way before Sven could even be there. And he had a few of the hooks on Bjergsen. He might have been able to flash out, but the Elise cocoon was right there to lock him in place. So Shrimp had a really good early game.
He did.
Yeah. And moving on, game 4 was just another. This is actually the first time. Is this the first time we've seen Bjergsen going mid Lucian? I believe it was. I know he's played a ton of Lucian in solo queue, but
yeah, I think it was the first competitive one we've seen of him.
This match and this game specifically, I think really highlighted how far ahead TSM was than, how much further ahead they were than Dig in draft, because TSM was able to draft a 280 carry team comp, which still had good engage, good initiation, and they weren't, they weren't only AD. They had the Cho'Gath scaling up in the top lane.
That Cho'Gath
They
was
had
nasty.
that Cho'Gath.
It really
so
was.
good.
It was disgusting.
And they really there wasn't much that they had to worry. They didn't get pigeonholed into an all AD comp that had a timer. They didn't get pigeonholed into a team that's really super squishy. They had objective control with the Cho'Gath. They had a ton of damage in team fights with Bjergsen and double. If it was like, if you pop one, the other's going to go off. And it was just really refreshing to see. Dignitas didn't really have an answer to that, and they really, it's like they were caught with their pants down in draft. Like, they just didn't know what to do. What are you guys' thoughts on game 4 and the, evolution, stuff like that?
It makes me believe that TSM and Parth and all them are really actually watching Korea, because this draft looked like a draft that should have came out of looked like a draft that came out of the SKT Longzhu series. Like, this was like how they set everything up and how he's drafting just in general. Like, I was really impressed with. I thought one of the best picks that Parth did in this whole thing was that first pick Jarvan, because you can flex it between the jungle and the top lane so well. And then immediately too, he always did the Jarvan and he always coupled it with the Gragas, because then you can intermingle both of them together, so they really didn't know. And he'd always do that quick.
Smart.
Yeah, it was a quick 1-2 combo, and that's an everybody in Korea does that. And I was wondering when the first Western team was going to be like, dude, why don't we pick these two together, blah, blah, this or blah, that, or couple them with the Cho'Gath and the Gragas like he did in game 4. I just still don't understand how they got Gragas, Cho'Gath, Lucian, Kog'Maw, and Braum all in one draft. Like, that's like a steal in its own. Like, that's a ridiculous comp. One of those, yeah, that was just ridiculous. Good job to Parth on this whole series.
Yeah.
Diggs bans that game were LeBlanc, which she's like a must ban just because of how broken she is, especially in Bjerg's hand. Rakan, don't want to see Bio have him. Ashe, also double lift, and then Renekton and Kassadin. Like, they got that incredible draft just because TSM's depth in picks. You ban the Cho'Gath, Haunter can come back with Shen like you did earlier. Ban Gragas, you might get Rek'Sai again, but you don't really want that. Bjergsen, he can play any champ, let's be real.
Yeah, he's got a champ ocean.
Yeah, for real. The Diggs' largest gold lead of the whole game, looking right now, is 597 gold, and that was at 6 minutes. They had the gold lead at 7 minutes by 250, and then from then to the end of the game, which went 45 minutes, they didn't have the gold lead even once. That just shows TSM's dominance this entire game.
Yeah, this one thing I wanted to point out this entire series is just, again, it felt like Dignitas went into this series thinking like, we have to beat TSM, we have to beat this team, we have to be the ones that spoil their 10 times the finals, and they didn't think we need to be Dignitas, because, and which is kind of sad to see, because again, you wanna beat the best version of each team when you're winning. And one thing that I thought was really strange is Dignitas has pretty much made a name for, reversed the Baron meme and made a name for sneaking Baron around, 20 to 25 minutes, taking objective fast, forcing you to be like, you better have this Baron pit warded at 20 minutes, or, you might be hearing the Baron sounds and being like, what just happened? Oh, that's where they were. And they didn't have Cassiopeia preference at all. They didn't go for the Cass. They didn't, and that's like one of Keen's best champs. He never got a game on it.
I'm sad we didn't see the Azir.
Right. But it's, that Cassiopeia and Callista are two champs that are so good at objective control. They're so good at taking Baron quickly, and that just fits into Diggs' style, and they just they didn't go for that. And then the other thing is Keen got outclassed so hard by Bjergsen this entire series. That was, and I was almost surprised that he didn't, they didn't pull out a cheese pick, which is, worked in the past. Keen has pulled out cheese picks on Bjergsen, and TSM historically doesn't adapt well to a pick that they're not expecting. And those are all things that I feel like both Keen and, Dignitas could have done. It was very confusing to see Dignitas not play a game that seemed like it, would have fit really well for them, and they kind of fell out of their depth and not, they didn't feel like Dignitas that we saw week 7, 8, 9.
Summed it up perfect.
One gripe that I have, and maybe I'll get a little flack for saying this, but I really think Doublelift is our player of the series. If you look through the KDAs, the damage done, and things like that, 3 out of 4 games he had the most damage dealt. All 3 Cogmal games, he had the most kills in the entire series and the least deaths in the entire series. I think that the amount of just work that he did, and when you look at the amount of CS leads that he was getting in lane the entire time, I think his early game and his late game, like honestly his all over game, was just so ridiculously high and so well played that it's insane. And I think that the only game they lost, honestly, I think a lot of it had to do with Bjergsen being caught by Adrian's hooks and things like that. Doublelift was never a liability. I think he constantly was a late game threat, and I don't think that he really made too many mistakes as a whole this entire series. I think that the player of the game series should have either went to him or possibly Haunser, just because of how hard he played game 2, how well he played game 2.
Yeah, obviously. Okay, and my gripe would be that you pick Haunser because of this only. Who would you rather have in your mid lane, Bjergsen or Keen? Who would you rather have in your bot lane, Doublelift or Adrian? Or Doublelift or Altec? Who would you rather have in top lane, Someday or Haunser? And Haunser pooped on Someday this match.
Yeah.
And that was after, what was it? Was the Thorin quote the famous tweet? Oh, with all these Korean top laners. Oh yeah, the Monte Cristo with all these
Monte Cristo.
All these Korean top laners. How are they going to do? And
how are the fans gonna?
Yeah. What are the excuses?
What are the excuses? The funniest thing too is that afterwards, all this whole thing, is that Thorin, didn't he tweet out something of I want to see like who's the best top laner or something like that, and then Haunser said that he was going to prove it. He's going to prove it next week to him. That's the confidence that we want to see at the end of the day. That's somebody that I think deserved player of the game, because you wouldn't have picked ever on any day possible, Monday through Sunday. I don't care. You pick Someday over Haunser every single day. And when you can play up to somebody that is supposed to beat you, and not just beat you, people thought he was going to get shit on. And he stepped up and said, you know what? No, I'm going to prove to you guys that I'm the best out here, and I'm going to do it next week on top of it. You need that type of person, because you know Doublelift and Bjergsen are going to do what they do. They prove that week in and week out, and it's kind of crappy to say, but like the legends, they get expected to be legends, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And Haunser's working his way up to be that point, but out of this series, no one would have ever expected Haunser to play the way that he did and kind of show up someday in the ways that he did. He outclassed them in lane. He invaded at the right times. He and Sven literally did what did to Nunu what Sven and Doublelift would have done to Janna if they would have picked that in the bot lane. That's exactly what they would have done. They would have basically just ran through them all. Yeah. But I mean, either way, there's a bunch of guys that you could have made a case for any of them during the game. It's just that Haunser outplayed his lane straight up.
Yep.
Right.
And it definitely does help that it was a lane that he wasn't expected to win.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's good for the upcoming match, which we can kind of turn to that. Immortals and TSM are playing this Sunday, I believe at 2. And that's... what are your initial thoughts on that? We won't go into predictions yet. Let's just talk about that for a little bit. My watching Immortals play CLG, yes, they won 3-0, but I saw so many missteps and misplays in that series, and that's something that maybe CLG will let you misplay and you can still win. But TSM, if they're playing at the caliber that we saw against Dignitas, you're not going to be able to make those missteps. TSM will capitalize on any mistake you make so quickly and turn that into a gold advantage or a map advantage. And, very quickly, you can't, there's nothing you can do about that. So what are your thoughts on the upcoming match, IMT TSM?
I'm nervous. Like, it seems like TSM's having too good of a run.
Yeah, last time this happened, it was against Immortals.
But like you said, Immortals made those missteps against CLG, and CLG might let that happen, but TSM isn't. But I think Immortals are going to come into this with a fresh mindset. They're not going to worry about the past series, and even though they did win, they're not going to worry and stay on those mistakes. But I think with the way their bot lane is playing, and their top lane, and their jungle is going to give TSM a lot of problems. Like, Immortals macro and team play have been really good, and I am excited to see if TSM's is going to be up to par with, well, at least where I think Immortals are.
And I think it's important to note that the one game that TSM lost against Dig was the one where Shrimp played so well in the early game on Elise. What is Xmithy's greatest strength as a jungler? He is great at setting up and snowballing his lanes. And I think that is certainly something that TSM has a tough time dealing with. I think historically we've seen them have a very difficult time when Elise is able to go down and get kills for laners and things like that. I think they have a tough time responding to early jungle activity, essentially. And basically, I still think that we have a good shot and we can answer it, but it is a possible weak point.
Yeah, one thing I would just like to point out is Cody-san is this is going to be his first time in front of a huge live crowd. Immortals didn't even make playoffs in Spring Split when he started, and this is the first time that everything else has been played in the studio. We saw Cody-san. I mean, we saw Immortals finish 7th in Spring Split, and I don't know how much of that was on Cody-san. I don't know how much of that was like him adapting to the environment, but I could definitely see the nerves of something like that. Also, Ole has played in, I believe, some Brazilian league. I forget exactly what Ole's history is.
He played Taiwan and Brazil.
Okay, yeah. And so I don't know how much exposure he's gotten to huge crowds, but I could definitely see Biofrost is kind of new, but he's already played in
won.
Played in 2 finals, MSI, Worlds Tournament. So I could see the bot lane just from, I that's definitely something to talk about that could be an issue that comes up for Immortals, just with having players who haven't been in, we've seen how nuts the finals crowds can get, and I don't think Boston is going to be any different. So, aside from that, I think this is going to be an amazing, this is going to be a fun finals. This is the first time that in a while that the old guard of C9, CLG, TSM aren't the only 2 people in finals, and it's TSM, Immortals. Honestly, if you're going to have any organization make the finals, I'm happy it's Immortals. So let's talk predictions. What do you guys think is gonna happen at the finals?
Are we talking games? Like, are we talking who's gonna win, or are we just talking like broad?
No, we're talking game score. Brad, you're up first on the spot. Who's gonna win it, and in how much?
I mean, of course, I'd pick TSM. They're gonna win 3-2. They're gonna reverse sweep Immortals.
Reverse sweep. Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
Feels good.
Why do you think they're going to lose the first 2 games? Just wondering. Like,
I feel like Immortals are going to pull out some strat they haven't seen before in any of these teams, and it's going to baffle.
Like Ardent Sensor. I'm kidding.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, no one even sees it anymore.
Maybe they'll actually play Janna or Lulu, but I think Xmithy's going to be on that early game jungler like we talked about. He's great at setting up his lanes, and if Xmithy gets ahead, then Sven's gonna invade his jungle, try to get himself back a little bit, and Sven's gonna keep getting caught out like he did earlier this year, or was that last year? But I think Immortal's gonna come out with something different than TSM has seen before. But then after that second game, TSM's gonna catch on, steamroll the rest of the way through.
All right, Chris, what do you think? Oh, sorry, Jeff.
TSM 3-1, and it's going to be the same exact setup as the Dignitas game. I personally think that this TSM squad looks better than last year's. The only thing that's going to tilt them if they do lose is going to be on Ole alone. Ole can single-handedly win that bot lane just because I watched Doublelift get tilted last year versus RNG, and if you put Ole on Alistar, it brings me scary, scary nightmares of Mata on Alistar again, and I'm just like, don't tilt him, please don't do it, please don't do it, but Ole has the potential to tilt Doublelift, so if they do win, if IMT does win, Ole's going to be the catalyst, but TSM wins 3-1 easy.
Yeah. Jeff?
I'm going to be a risky boy and say TSM's going to win 3-0.
All right.
I do think that Immortals are going to pull out cheese, and I think that cheese is not going to work. I think that TSM has, and they showed it against Shrimp's Nunu, they are not the TSM of IEM San Jose where they get beaten by TF Jungle. This is the TSM that sees that and says, oh, that's stupid, that doesn't work, we win the game. And I think that basically, I think Immortals... Not only was it their performance against CLG that didn't, it was essentially the sloppiest 3-0 of all time. I think that what we were saying earlier about composure is certainly going to hold up. I don't think that Cody Sun is someone who's going to do well under this amount of pressure, at least for the first time. And I think that that's going to be something that gets abused by TSM because the composure and pedigree of these players is absolutely insane. And I think that they're going to just absolutely smash.
Yeah. I'm going to follow along with Chris and go with a 3-1, and I think it will look a lot like this Dignitas series. Mm-hmm. The wild card is Xmithy, not because I think Sven is bad, just because I think Sven could be invading and stealing Xmithy's resources, but he's so good at getting his lanes ahead. But I think the worrying points for Immortals and why they won't take more games off of that jungle pressure is I think Hanser he's got a playoffs buff. I mean, we just saw him dismantle Someday. Someday couldn't do anything. Someday got off the ground when the rest of his team was winning, and Hanser hard carried game 2 and did very well game 1 and 4. So I think he's easily going to be able to take on, or at least match up, go even with Flame. I think Bjergsen is seriously going to outclass Pobelter. We saw Pobelter struggling against Huhi this weekend. Huhi was the shining star of CLG, and Pobelter was struggling. And so we saw the way that Bjergsen just handled Keen this weekend, and I think it's going to be the same story where Pobelter's not going to be able to get anything off on Bjergsen. And then I think, Doublelift, although you say like the Alistar, tilt Doublelift, all of that stuff, like TSM drafted lanes that should have lost early the entire season or the entire series against Dignitas, and yet they came out even or ahead in all of those lanes. And I think even if Immortals does go for a kill lane or a lane to put TSM behind, I think if nothing else, Doublelift and Biofrost are good at just weathering the storm. They're good at like, we'll be here when you need us. Like, don't worry about ganking us. Like, maybe have 2-man roam and we'll kill him under tower. But other than that, just go chill top lane Sven, and they'll come out even. And I think because of that, especially with this is a protect the 80 carry, scaling 80 carry meta, and which ADC in North America plays late game team fights the best. And I think one game's gonna, TSM might not everything's going to fire for them, but yeah, I definitely see the 3-1.
Oh, and by the way, I don't know if you guys watched the video that Doublelift put out earlier on his YouTube channel, but I saw him flash an Alistar combo, and I was like, boom, we won Worlds, baby.
Yes. We got it. We're getting out of groups this year. Oh, my word.
That's so funny.
So actually, I think a funny thing to note, TSM 2-0'd every single team this split minus C9, Immortals, and Dignitas. Dignitas, they went 0 for 2, and they just beat him 3-1. Cloud9, who lost to Immortals, they went 1-1. And, Cloud9, who they lost to Dignitas. Anyways, they went 1-1, and then Immortals, they went 1-1. And so I think it's pretty funny that the three teams that they're they didn't really come into contact with C9, but the three teams that they're coming into contact with in this playoffs tournament, they're the ones that they struggle against, and they're already performing just very, very well. It'll be interesting to see.
Another thing I wanted to bring up real quick, I think that this is not on an individual level, but on a macro level, the strongest we've seen in NALCS. I think every single team has their own individual identity, and I think that they play to it very, very well at the top of the upper echelon, at least. I think Immortals, this isn't the strongest individually they've ever been, because obviously Huni Rainover was a stronger individual talent, stronger laning, but I think that they have reached a consistency level that I think will make them a strong team on the international level when they have a little more experience. And I think that teams like Dignitas, where although they just lost to TSM, I don't think there's any shame in that. I think that they have proven that they are teams that can, on any day of the week, beat just about anyone. And then when a team like CLG, I don't think that CLG is actually bad. I think that, I do think that they have a difficult time with their jungler, but I think that Huhi has really improved. I think that Darshan is playing ridiculously well. I think that their bottom lane is quite strong. And I think that there's no team in the top 4 or even top 5, where I think none of them would be a bad team to send to an international competition. I think that from TSM all the way down to C9, they're going to do something. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah, definitely. Any other thoughts going into this last week? Next week on our episode, the only TSM match, or the only TSM organization match that I know of, unless there's something that I'm missing, is the finals match. So we're gonna have a quote unquote, don't quote me on it, special podcast episode next week where we just talk about the League of Legends team the whole weekend. That's about it for us. I don't know if any of you guys have anything else to say. Go for it, Chris.
Watch Samsung Galaxy versus KT in the Gauntlet Finals. If Samsung does beat KT, that's the second year in a row they were the reason why they didn't go to Worlds. So,
which is
really
KT,
funny.
Dude, Cube played like a monster. You think he's gonna be able to match up to Smeb?
Yeah, we'll see. I just hope they lose for the memes. That would just make my day.
Yeah.
I just want to watch them lose for the memes.
It's really funny. KT, that poor team.
Exactly.
Those poor young boys.
It's like Liquid back in the day, just can't catch a break.
They're doing everything they can.
They're doing everything they can. Oh man. Well, I think without any further ado, that's all we've got here. Thanks for tuning in. I guess a little bit of a little note is we're not paying for SoundCloud. So we're only going to be able to have 2 episodes up at a time. So we'll only have the 2 most recent episodes. For a backlog of all of our episodes, we want to direct you over to YouTube, where there is a video. You get to see our bright, shiny faces, and all of our great, if you will only listen on SoundCloud, you should see Chris's face when he rants. He turns all red, turns into a red rage monster.
It's pretty good.
Thank you all for your support. Drop a like, subscribe, do whatever you got to do to support us. Support the TSM guys. Go to their streams, TSM chants and chats all over the world, please. And yeah, that is all we have for today.
Bye.
Peace.
Bye.
Bye.